Good afternoon. Hi, everybody. It's very nice to be invited here. I was taught by my elders to start everything that I do by first of all saying thank you to my relations, my Inuk brothers and sisters, for the invitation to be on their land. So I thank my Inuk brothers and sisters for allowing me to come here and speak on your lands. I was also taught to give thanks to the Creator for this blustery day that has been given to us, and to always honor my elders and to remember all of our ancestors who have come before us. That's the way that I try to start everything that I do, and it sort of grounds me. It reminds me of where I come from, reminds me of the people that I'm here to speak of, and hopefully to represent well. So that's my way of keeping my connection to my own spirit, to my own communities. Chris had asked me to talk a little bit about several things today, and I'm going to try to fit them in the next 20 minutes, 15 or 20 minutes. First of all, I'll talk a little bit about the Science Commission, who we are, because probably nobody here really knows much about us, although next year will be our 20th year. So we have been around a good long time. We started actually as a project of the University of Alaska, Anchorage. I was the director of the Circumpolar Health Institute at the time, and we started this project to look at ways that we could more effectively engage our communities in working between researchers at the university and our Native communities. So I started looking at this thing called the Science Commission, and we got funding from the National Science Foundation. Actually, one of the first 10-year cooperative agreements between the NSF and the Science Commission to get us on our feet, get us headed in the right direction. So now we've been around for almost 20 years. And let me tell you a little bit more about that. Let's go to the first one. First of all, I like to start with people getting a little bit of an understanding about traditional knowledge. The knowledge, the native science that comes from our communities. So first of all, just look at the top of that iceberg, because that's what most people know about our native science, about our communities. They know our arts, our drumming, our stories, our dancing, and that's pretty much all that they think of when they think about traditional knowledge. But look at everything underneath there. Look at all of the things that really make up native science, the skills that we have in navigation, in forecasting weather and conditions, in understanding the plants and all of the things around us, knowing the stars and the constellations. Our people could navigate all over the planet by understanding cosmology, by understanding what was really out there in the universe. So all of these things are really important parts of native science. And that's what I'm trying to bring for people to understand, that this is just a small part of what makes up the knowledge that comes from people who live on the land and have for centuries. Okay. So some of the ways that we know that our indigenous knowledge systems really help us to understand the ecosystem is understanding how our cultures are sustained in some of the harshest environments on this planet. We've learned to live well and thrive in those areas. How to hunt successfully, our weather patterns, food harvesting techniques, the biology of all of the animals around us. Most importantly, especially in these days, how to adapt to the changes around us. Interrelationships of all of the things. You know that science, it's taken a long time for Western sciences to sort of catch up to the model that we know exists in our indigenous communities, that everything is connected. How long has it been? Not very long since science has finally started doing interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, really understanding these complex systems and that they all fit together, where that's been part of our universe from the very beginning. We know whether things are over a long period of time, and we understand the natural world around us. These are just some of the ways that we can help to bring that kind of knowledge into the system. Some of the things that we do at the Science Commission, and it's I guess I wanted to bring this as a model because not many people really have recognized the Science Commission model, although they've looked at it and are now looking at it as part of Navajo traditional knowledge and ways of building their own infrastructure there. In New Zealand, they've been practicing and using this model for a while. So we're hoping that more people will engage in this kind of a relationship in their own communities. So we of course, are trying to bring local and traditional knowledge into research and science to influence and actually run research so that we are the ones not only knowing what the research is that's needed, but having the capacity to be able to carry out that research as well. To build our own cadre of young budding Native scientists, to bring them into the fold. That's really part of what we're trying to do. And get our own people, our elders and others recognized for all of the knowledge that they've provided to all of the people getting their PhDs over the last number of years, so that they know. And of course also making sure that the economic benefits come back to our communities. One of the first things that we did, this is one of our first projects that we actually started within the first few years of the Science Commission, was to begin the first ever traditional knowledge database. And I'll tell you, we had some pretty long and intense conversations in our communities about whether or not this was something we should even be doing. Because traditional knowledge is not on the website. It's not the way that you hand down stories. It's not the way you pass on that information at your grandmother's knee. So we had some really long and intense conversations as to whether we should even consider doing something like this. But ultimately, our elders felt that we were losing so much knowledge, that so much of this information was not being passed on, that it just wasn't, we weren't being able to provide that to all of the people that we wanted to, that they decided that we'd develop this, but that we owned it. So that people who are part of this traditional knowledge base, number one, we gathered all of this information not by sending out forms, surveys, not going out and just getting people to talk into a microphone, but we did traditional talking circles in all of our communities. And we sat there for as long as people wanted to talk. If we went in there for 4 days or 4 weeks, that's the amount of time that it would take for us to get the kind of dialogue going within the communities that we wanted, that would bring us the rich information. We had people who were outsiders sitting around who would take this information and were great typists and could capture all of this knowledge. And then we went back to our partners at the university and we put it into a searchable database so that now you can go in and look at any of these number of things. You can check on, for instance, caribou and find out what people in Kotzebue are talking about caribou. You can find out what people in Southeast are talking about in salmon fisheries. So we've tried to put that kind of information. Most importantly, we kept the stories intact. We wanted to make sure that the context of that little piece of information wasn't lost. So we took that information and related it back to a story or where it came from. So you might get a 30-minute story out of that one little snippet of information that was in the database. So that's the way we tried to keep our traditional knowledge true and in context. And our people indeed own it. Anytime that anybody ever wants anything removed from it, there's no questions asked, it's gone. But it's happened only once in all of the years since we've had this online. So it has actually worked pretty well. So anyhow, there's a lot of these things in that are part of the website. Please feel free to go and take a look at it when you get a chance. Okay. So these are, again, some of the things we looked at. Searchable, you can see, if you went through this, you'd see every community in Alaska listed there. You could click on the community. You could say that you wanted to look at contaminant data or nutrition, harvest data, native knowledge, native concerns, any of those things, and click those links and it'll bring them up for you. We also went to scientists and asked for the relevant science information. So if somebody sees a parasite in caribou and perhaps it's an issue of brucellosis, something like that, that it will take you back to the Western science as well. So we tried to incorporate that as part of our model as well. Now, let me move on a little bit to some of the things we've done beyond that. These are some of the other ways that we're sharing information and knowledge, not only within Alaska, but actually to our other Indigenous neighbors and communities that we are working with. This is a project that I've been involved with over the last few years called the Bering Sea Subnetwork. It's a project that's happening not only in Alaska, but also with communities in Russia. And these are the communities that are involved in this Bering Sea Subnetwork. It is a project within the Arctic Council. Okay. Oops. Yeah, you know, you're going to just get all of the partners. Sorry. Should have came up as one. There we go. So again, this is some of the data that's coming from this kind of project, so that you can see the kinds of things that they were looking at. This was just on environmental conditions, but it's for species and a lot of other things like that. So you can see the variance in communities. Our report is actually being written now for our final conference report. Okay. Oh, okay. Another very interesting project that is one of the people that we work with, the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium, called the LEO Project, the Local Environmental Observer Network. This is one of the newer projects, actually just started up a couple of years ago, and it's where people can actually go online from any of the communities that are part of this LEO network and post information for what they're seeing within their own community. And it's up on this database of information. It's actually now starting to work fairly well. I think the next one will give us a few. These are, again, here's some of the communities that are listed in part of the LEO network communities. So you can see that there's quite a few people in Alaska now who are part of the LEO observers. And we're trying to expand that, of course, as every day goes on. Another one that I just actually saw, this came up on my computer just a couple of days ago. And I don't know how many of you have seen this, but very new. An Atlas of Community-Based Monitoring in a Changing World, brought to you by ICC. And many of the universities here, Brown, Iqaluit, the Inuit Knowledge Center, Carleton University, Iqaluit. So a number of the communities here are involved in putting together this atlas now. That's an online. Sorry, I couldn't capture a picture of this, but another one that is really interesting. Got a lot of great information about things that are going on, not all over the Arctic. It's not just Alaska, but Canada, Russia, a number of different places. So feel free to again look at this as another way of sharing knowledge in a new world. These are some of the international initiatives that we've been involved with over the last few years. When I was serving as chair of ICC, of Inuit Circumpolar Council, we did the first ever Indigenous Peoples Global Summit on climate change, where we brought together more than 400 Indigenous people from all over the world to talk about what was going on climate issues. And we have now formed a network. We have a secretariat in the Philippines. I serve as the northern co-chair, and there's a southern co-chair, and we meet several times throughout the year at various UN functions to actually share information not only with Indigenous people in the Arctic, but truly all over the world now. So we've got a really large group of folks who are actively working together. I also have worked for many years with a project that comes out of the United Nations called Many Strong Voices. It's a project or an alliance between the Arctic and the SIDS, the Small Island Developing States. So we're working with many of those communities that are unfortunately going underwater and having the same kind of problems that we are experiencing in the Arctic. But we've got a really strong, solid network working together. Another project that the Science Commission hosts is the Arctic Monitor, the Arctic Alliance. If you haven't found this out yet, you really should go on to this, become a member of this weekly update on everything that's happening in the Arctic. So if you want to find out, we post all the stuff we can find about information going on in the Arctic at arcticmonitor.net. Okay. And of course, everybody I think knows about the Arctic Council. I was very pleased to serve as the chair of ICC for several years and got to work pretty extensively with the Arctic Council. served also as the chair of the IPS, the Indigenous Peoples Secretariat. We have 6 Indigenous organizations that are actually members of the Arctic Council, a very unique group where it is the 8 Arctic nations plus the 6 Indigenous groups in the Arctic. It's one of the very few models that actually has representation of Indigenous people sitting at the same table as the senior Arctic officials. So we have a chance to really give some good, strong guidance. These are some of the projects that are worked on, or the working groups of the Arctic Council. I'm going to have to go through the rest. I realize my time is coming quickly to an end.
Yeah, I think we can be a little bit
I can be flexible? Okay.